dreamer, but my heart's of gold. I had a runaway.
Today feels like one of those weeks where the news is basically a group chat. One friend is finally calming down, another is getting way too controlling, and someone else is trying to get you to eat vegetables.
We've got mortgage rates easing up, HOAs throwing their weight around, a fresh set of heart health guidelines, a phrase you should probably stop saying to people who are struggling, and a throwback JFK warning from 1956 that sounds uncomfortably familiar in the age of AI. That's a solid lineup. It's like financial relief, neighborhood drama, personal health, emotional intelligence, and then an existential history lesson. Exactly. Let's start with the one that made a lot of people do a tiny quiet sigh of relief: mortgage rates. Because for a while it's felt like every time someone even thinks about buying a house, the rate pops up like it's personally offended. This week, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate dipped to 6.34%. And I know that doesn't sound like a magical number if you're comparing it to the super low years, but in the current climate, it's a rare moment where buyers can exhale. It's the difference between maybe we can do this and we're going to rent forever and start naming the landlord's mailbox.
Right. And even a small dip matters because it changes the monthly math. When rates soften, it can bring a few more people off the sidelines, folks who've been watching listings like it's a sport but refusing to lock anything in. But here's the twist. Even when the mortgage piece gets slightly less painful, there's another cost waiting in the wings.
Let me guess. The HOA. The HOA. The Homeowners Association. Sometimes helpful, sometimes a mini government with a clipboard and a grudge.
The one place where your grass can be a little too tall and suddenly you're treated like an international suspect. Here's what's happening. HOA lien filings jumped 8.6% in 2025, and Florida is leading the surge.
A lien is not a slap on the wrist. That's serious. That's this can follow you serious. Exactly. A lien means the HOA is asserting a legal claim tied to the property because of unpaid dues, fees, or fines. And once you're in that territory, it can escalate quickly, especially if people don't realize how fast small balances can turn into big problems with penalties and legal costs. And it's not always someone refusing to pay, right? Sometimes it's people genuinely squeezed. Insurance costs, taxes, repairs, everything rising at once, and then the association fees go up too.
That's a big part of it. Housing affordability isn't just the mortgage, it's the whole package. Dues, assessments, insurance, the cost of simply existing in a neighborhood with rules. And if lien filings are rising, it's a sign that more households are hitting a breaking point.
Also, liens make the idea of owning feel a little complicated. Like, sure, you own the home, but you're also one missed payment away from a legal headache. And that's the tension. Mortgage rates give you one kind of relief, but the broader system can still tighten. Which brings us to the next story, what it looks like when experts try to tighten up something else: our heart health. Ah, yes. The annual reminder that I cannot, in fact, live on vibes and salty snacks. The American Heart Association rolled out updated dietary guidance framed around 9 key steps. And the funny thing is, people always expect some shocking secret, like actually the healthiest food is frosting, but the message stays consistent. Let me guess. More plants, less ultra-processed stuff, watch the sodium and added sugars, be mindful of fats, and maybe don't treat vegetables like decorative items.
That's the vibe. The guidelines are basically a reset to the fundamentals. Prioritize nutrient-dense foods, build meals around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthier fats. And yes, the advice still implies you should actually eat the vegetables, not just buy them and hope their presence in your fridge changes you spiritually.
So kale chips don't grant automatic health points just because they're kale.
Not if they're basically salty, crunchy air with a halo. The deeper point here is that heart health isn't usually about one dramatic choice. It's about patterns. What you do most days, not what you do on your best day.
And that's a good segue into something else about patterns, the way we talk to people when they're having a hard time. Yes, because one of the stories this week was about 3 words you should never say to someone who's struggling. And the reason it matters is that a lot of us say the wrong thing while trying to be supportive.
It's usually not cruelty, it's discomfort. We want the pain to end, so we reach for a phrase that sounds upbeat.
Exactly. And those 3 words, the classic example is at least. Oh no.
At least you still have your job. At least it wasn't worse. At least you can try again.
Right. Those words tend to shrink someone's experience. They can land like, your pain is inconvenient. Could you trade it in for gratitude? Even if you mean well, it can feel like the person isn't being heard. So what do you say instead when you're not sure what to do? You can keep it simple. That sounds really hard. Or, I'm here. Or, do you want to talk about it? Or do you want distraction? You're not trying to fix them in one sentence. You're giving them room to be human. It's kind of like the mortgage rate story, honestly. People want a magic lever that makes everything affordable today. But most of the time, what helps is a small shift, less pressure, more clarity, fewer unintended consequences. And that's also why the last story hits, because it zooms way out from neighborhoods and kitchens and personal moments into history. And it asks what happens when society thinks it's stepping into a new era. We're talking about JFK, right? Yep. A speech from 1956 where Kennedy talked about standing at the edge of the atomic age. And reading it now, it's eerie, because we talk about AI the same way people talked about nuclear technology, a threshold, a turning point, something with the power to reshape everything. It's comforting and terrifying that humans keep experiencing history as the moment everything changes. That's the through line this week. Mortgage rates dip, and suddenly it feels like a new chapter for buyers. HOAs tighten enforcement, and it feels like a new chapter for homeowners, just not a fun one. Dietary guidance shows up again, reminding us the threshold isn't a miracle diet, it's daily decisions. And in relationships, one small phrase can be a threshold too, either toward connection or toward someone feeling dismissed.
And then JFK is basically saying, be careful at the doorway of a powerful new era, which is not a bad reminder when everyone's sprinting toward the next big thing.
So if you're taking anything away from today, yes, celebrate the small wins, like a lower mortgage rate. But keep your eyes open for the hidden pressures, like HOA costs and enforcement. Take the heart health advice as a long game, not a punishment. And when someone is hurting, resist the urge to say, at least. Choose presence over silver linings. And if you live in an HOA, maybe check your email, because somewhere someone is drafting a strongly worded note about your garden gnome. Let's hope the gnome survives. That's it for today. 5 stories, 1 theme. Thresholds are everywhere, and the way we step through them matters.